Welcome to the podcast, folks. Today we're diving into a really dynamic framework for landing that first gig with a labor buyer. It's a step-by-step process that covers prospecting to closing and even turning a one-time show into a long-term relationship.
Cool, I'm excited about this. So where do we start?
We kick things off with prospecting. You need to build a target list of potential labor buyers. Think production companies, event marketing agencies, AV companies, and even freelance collectives working with production managers, technical directors, and crew coordinators.
Yeah, right. So it's like first step, figure out who's in the game, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about listing names. You research them using LinkedIn, Instagram, even past call sheets and referrals. You want to know things like mutual connections and what shows they've worked on.
Yeah, getting that context is key. And then you're supposed to segment them too, right? Like hot, warm, or cold.
That's correct. You segment your list based on how likely they are to need crew. Hot if you've worked together before, warm if you're familiar with their type of work, and cold if there's no existing relationship.
Right, I see. Now, once we've got our prospects, what's the next phase?
Next up is qualifying. This is where you analyze the buyer to really determine if they have a need and if you're the perfect fit for them. You ask questions like, do they run enough shows a year? Or is their team in a growth phase?
Agreed. That sounds essential because there's no point wasting time if they're just not a match.
Exactly. No one likes wasting time. You also need to check if they're already using external labor providers. This helps determine if you're entering a saturated market or if there's an opportunity.
But isn't it a bit risky if they already have vendors? I mean, how do you overcome that?
Good point. And that's where looking for trigger events really comes into play, like a sudden crew shortage or a large event season approaching. Such events create a window where they might be more open to testing new vendors.
That makes sense. So it's spotting the right moment when they might actually need you.
Precisely. Now moving on, phase 3 dives into outreach and cold calling. The essence here is to break the ice tactfully. For instance, start with soft touch messages on LinkedIn or by email.
Yeah, like
you
a
keep
value
it super
first
helpful
approach.
and focused on them.
And you send something like, hey, I noticed you're working on this event and we support crew like yours. Just here if you ever need backup, right?
Spot on. The idea is to be non-pushy, a gentle assertion of your presence. Then, after 2 to 5 days, you follow up with a more direct call.
Right.
Make sure you offer to email details if they're busy.
I love that approach because it doesn't corner the buyer immediately, but gradually brings them into a conversation.
Exactly. Now, phase 4 is all about pitching that first opportunity. This is when you finally present a clear, low-risk trial offer. You make your pitch specific. Offer them, say, a backup tech or a crew intro on a test gig with no long-term contracts.
That's crucial. So basically giving them something like, try us out on one show, and if we don't deliver, we cover the cost.
You've got it. It reduces the perceived risk. You might even throw in some evidence, like crew bios, client testimonials, or a sleek one-pager outlining your strengths.
Yes, testimonials really seal the deal. But here's something I'm curious about. How do you ensure that the pitch doesn't come off as too desperate?
That's a fair challenge. The trick is in the framing. You position it as, an opportunity for them to evaluate risk-free rather than a hard sell. It's more about proving your worth. And then we move to phase 5, closing the test gig. This is where speed really matters. When they're ready, you need to respond within minutes. Lock in the crew, confirm logistics, get all the paperwork in order, and demonstrate reliability.
Absolutely, responsiveness is key. It's like, if there's a window, you got to be lightning fast, right?
Exactly. You confirm all details as early as you can. Gear lists, call sheets, schedules, everything. Then, for that final touch, you over-deliver. Make sure your crew is prepped, punctual, and that you send a follow-up post-show note thanking them and asking for feedback.
Right, the post-show engagement kicks the door open for future opportunities. And speaking of future opportunities, there's also that bonus phase, isn't there? The one about turning a first gig into a lasting relationship?
Yup, exactly. After the gig, send a debrief email to say thanks, share feedback, and offer future availability. Then, keep the relationship warm by staying engaged with helpful messages every few weeks. Share industry news, crew updates, even behind-the-scenes stories.
It's like turning a single date into a long-term match. I like that analogy. A promising start that blossoms into a lasting partnership.
Absolutely, and that's essential. Relationships are the backbone here. Even when you're not actively pitching, you maintain visibility by commenting on their projects, posting insights on LinkedIn, and staying top of mind.
Right. It's about consistent, genuine engagement. So, summing up, we go from prospecting, research, and segmentation to qualifying by analyzing need, then outreach with soft touches and follow-ups, pitching a risk-free trial, closing with speed and clarity, and finally nurturing the relationship. Am I missing anything?
No, that covers it pretty comprehensively. However, one thing that really stands out is the need for personalization throughout the process. Each step is tailored, be it researching mutual connections or customizing your pitch to reduce risk.
Personalization is the secret sauce, for sure. But I respectfully wonder if sometimes the process might feel too rigid. What if a buyer's approach is really different from these norms? Isn't there room for creative adaptations?
That's a really good point. The framework is meant to be adaptable. Think of it as a blueprint. It's like a starting point that you modify based on feedback and the nuances of each buyer's behavior.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. It's not set in stone. It's crucial to continuously tweak your approach, especially with market trends and buyer preferences evolving.
Being nimble is key in today's fast-paced world. And with that approach, you ensure that even if a prospect doesn't convert immediately, they remain in your radar for when the time is right.
Yup. Staying top of mind is like planting seeds. You water them with regular check-ins until they bloom. You send quick messages about recent gigs or crew availability, and that constant engagement can really tip the scales when it's time to decide.
Absolutely, it's a long game. To me, this process is almost like a well-oiled machine where every step builds on the previous one, yet it's flexible enough to handle unique buyer scenarios.
Exactly. It's about building trust, step by step, call by call, gig by gig. The careful blend of research, timely outreach, clear pitching, rapid follow-up, and then maturing, that relationship is like crafting a masterpiece.
Right, I totally agree. Well, that was a fantastic breakdown. It's a comprehensive roadmap that not only gets your foot in the door, but also ensures that you build lasting, valuable partnerships in the labor buying space.
Couldn't have said it better. It's all about setting the stage properly and then executing perfectly. Thanks for joining in on this deep dive into the process.
Thanks for having me. This conversation really opened up the intricacies of not just landing a test gig, but making sure you stick around long term.